Today's topic is gestational diabetes mellitus. As you all know, diabetes is very common in Indian population, especially in pregnancy, during pregnancy. What is gestational diabetes mellitus? It is defined as impaired glucose tolerance with onset or first recognition during pregnancy. What do you mean by that? Uh, Diabetes in pregnancy is divided into two groups, that is pre-gestational and gestational. Okay. Gestational mainly occurs after 20 weeks. Okay, after 20 weeks of pregnancy, because this is due to pregnancy hormones. I will tell you later which hormones, but mainly pregnancy to pregnancy hormones affect uh, gestational diabetes mellitus occurs mainly after 20 weeks, that is in second trimester. Pre-gestational diabetes, that patient was already diabetic before pregnancy, or she was diabetic but didn't know, came to know first, diagnosis was done during the pregnancy. That is pre-gestational diabetes, or also called as overt diabetes. Patient was already diabetic, but she didn't know. She came to know only during pregnancy when investigations were done. In what is the major difference between the two? In pre-gestational diabetes, increased glucose level, okay, was during, or hyperglycemia was during, in the first trimester. So what is the important thing that occurs in first trimester in the fetus? Huh? Yes, very good. Organogenesis occurs in the first trimester. So what is the main difference between these two, pre-gestational and gestational? In pre-gestational diabetes, there was hyperglycemia and there was side effect or damage during the first trimester, that is the organogenesis period. Genesis. And so there is increased risk of which? Congenital anomalies. Congenital anomalies mainly occurs in pre-gestational diabetes. That doesn't mean it does not occur in the gestational diabetes. It is the higher chances are in the pre-gestational diabetes, because due to hyperglycemia, there is release of free radicals, and free radical damage occurs to the organs that are developing in the fetus during the first trimester. So the main problem with the pre-gestational diabetes or overt diabetes is there is high risk of congenital anomalies. Which congenital anomalies? I will tell you later on. Okay, this is the major difference. Many times patient was already diabetic but she didn't know. So nowadays we normally do a screening test or blood sugar monitoring in the first trimester. Okay, if the first trimester blood sugar, fasting blood sugar is more than 126, or random blood sugar level is more than 200, or HbA1c is more than 6.5 in the first trimester or in the second trimester, so we can label the patient as overt diabetes, okay, or already known case of diabetes. Why diabetes is important? Because it is nowadays, because of the dietary habit and increase in the intake of junk food or fast food, there is increased risk of diabetes in the new population or the Indian population. Okay, so gestational diabetes normally accounts for 90% of the cases of the diabetes, and pre-gestational diabetes accounts for the approx 10% of the cases. Okay. The majority of the diabetes in pregnancy, 90% are gestational diabetes. Only few or 10% are the pre-gestational or overt diabetes. Worldwide, 1 in 10 pregnancies is treated with diabetes, 90% of which are GDM. women with GDM and their offspring are at increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes later in life. That's why it is also important. In India, one of the most populous country globally, rates of GDM are estimated to be 10 to 14.3%, which is much higher than the West. Why? Why it occurs in Indian population? Because we tend to eat or have carbohydrate dominant food. We take more carbohydrate than the required amount. Okay, Indian population we take rice more or say chapati more. Carbohydrate intake is more in Indian population. You can see your household, your whatever you were eating in the last 20 years, there was carbohydrate dominance in all the food. That's why in Indian population, the chances or the risk of diabetes is more than the Western population. 22 million women between 10 to 39 years have diabetes, expected to rise by 20% in next 10 years. 54 million women with impaired glucose tolerance or pre-diabetes have the potential to develop GDM if they become pregnant. The prevalence of GDM in India varies from approx 10 to 14% in different parts of the country depending on the geographical location and diagnostic method used. GDM has been found to be more prevalent in urban areas than in rural areas. So this is pre-existing diabetes and gestational diabetes. The criteria for diabetes already told you, more than 126 fasting, random more than 200 and HbA1c more than 6.5. What is the pathophysiology of GDM? Because due to insulin resistance, due to placental secretion of anti-insulin hormone, there is gestational diabetes mellitus. Maternal hepatic glucose production increases by 15 to 30% to meet the fetal demand late in pregnancy. Because you want the maternal body wants to supply the glucose to the fetus, developing fetus. That's why they increase the hepatic glucose production. And pancreatic beta cell dysfunction occurs due to genetics, maybe due to autoimmune disorder or chronic insulin resistance is already there. So, as a result of all three, increased glucose production, dysfunction of the pancreatic beta cell and insulin resistance due to placental hormones, there is increased chances of gestational diabetes mellitus or gestational diabetes mellitus develops. So as you can see, as the pregnancy advances, the human placental lactogen, estrogen, progesterone, these all increase as the pregnancy advances, and these increases mainly in the second trimester or after second trimester. Carbohydrate metabolism in pregnancy, insulin resistance is there, production of human placental lactogen, cortisol, estrol, progesterone have anti-insulin effect. Increased destruction of insulin by kidney placenta occurs due to insulinase. This increased lipolysis. Why? Because mother utilizes fatty acids for her caloric needs, sparing the glucose for the fetus. Everything is being spared for the fetus. That's why there is increased lipolysis, there is increased gluconeogenesis. Amino acids are also being used to produce glucose or for as a source of glucose. Here, because of increased insulin resistance, there is hyperglycemia, there is decreased level of insulin because of insulinase, restriction of insulin, and there is hyperlipidemia due to lipolysis. Okay. So what happens? The excessive glucose is being transported to the fetus. This is the fetus, this is the mother. Okay. The glucose, the amino acids, the lipids are being transported to the fetus. What happens inside the body of fetus? There is hyperglycemia. Okay. Increased glucose, increase insulin. Insulin doesn't cross the placenta, but glucose crosses the placenta. So the excessive glucose comes inside the fetal body. There is hyperglycemia. As a result of hyperglycemia, what will happen? There will be increased insulin because insulin helps to utilize the glucose. Insulin will help the body of the fetus to utilize the glucose. Okay. So, as a result of hyperglycemia, there will be hyperinsulinemia inside the fetus. And as a result, what happens? There is increased IGF. Is increased adiponectin, insulin, C-peptide, mainly due to increased IGF and decreased leptin and ghrelin. There is gluconeogenesis, lipogenesis, there is excessive anabolism, and there is fat deposition, there is organomegaly. Every organ increases in size. and there is fat deposition inside the fetal body. And in the maternal body, I already told you, because of estrogen, cortisol, progesterone and HPL, human placental lactogen, that due to that there is all these things happens in the pregnancy. Okay. Now, how we will diagnose the diabetes in pregnancy? The purpose of screening is to identify asymptomatic individuals with high probability of having or developing a specific disease. Earlier, there was we will do screening test, or we will do the blood sugar monitoring in specific group of the pregnant patient, not all the pregnant patients. But nowadays, the scenarios has changed, and now we do screening test or screening test of diabetes in all the pregnant women. Okay, this is universal screening. But in some part of the world, there is selective screening, low risk, moderate risk and high risk. So mainly they do the screening test in the moderate and high risk patients. But in India, there is universal screening. There are two methods. One is one-step method and one is two-step method. So which there are different recommended screening strategy for gestational diabetes in different parts of world. IADPSG uses the one-step method, that is 75 gram glucose OGTT test. So if fasting is more than 92, if 1 hour test blood sugar is more than 180 and 2 hours is more than 153, if any one of these is raised, the patient will be labeled as diabetes mellitus in pregnancy. In WHO, they also use one-step method. But ACOG and ADA, these are the American guidelines. Okay, American guidelines, they use mainly two-step method. First is the screening with 50 gram glucose, and the second step is 100 gram glucose. Okay, so here 50 gram glucose is given to the patient. If the blood sugar is more than 140, that the second step will be done. If the first step is normal, then the second screening test can be done at 24 to 26 weeks. In the 100 gram glucose OGTT, if the fasting is more than 95, 1 hour is more than 180, 2 hours is more than 155 and 3 hours blood sugar is more than 140, if any two of these are raised, the patient will be labeled as diabetes mellitus in pregnancy. This is the 100 gram glucose oral glucose tolerance test. This is the Carpenter-Costin criteria, which we normally follow, not in India, in American guideline. So fasting blood sugar is taken. So this is easy way to remember. You don't need to remember all this, but just for sake of your NEET PG exam, you can remember this by 5, 0, 5, 0. Okay, 95, 180, 155, 140. Okay, this is fasting, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour. But nowadays mainly we use 75 gram glucose one-step test. So in according to American guideline ACOG, which group we normally do in average risk and high risk? Which are the high risk patients in according to American guideline? Marked obesity is there, there's strong history, family history of type 2 DM, previous history of GDM, impaired glucose metabolism or glycosuria. Average risk, ethnic group with high prevalence of GDM, diabetes and first degree relative, age more than 25 years, overweight before pregnancy or weight high at birth. Low risk, ethnic group with low prevalence of GDM, no known diabetes in first degree relatives, age less than 25 years, weight normal before pregnancy, weight normal at birth, no history of abnormal glucose metabolism. So, this is the two-step. Okay, first 50 gram glucose is given and blood sugar is monitored. If it is more than 140, the patient is taken for the 100 gram glucose tolerance test. Okay, the same criteria is used. In one step, it is done at 24 to 28 weeks. 75 gram glucose is given and blood sugar is measured at fasting, 1 hour and 2 hour. This is WHO criteria. This is two-step screening. But in India, we follow the DIPSI guideline. What is DIPSI guideline? Diabetes in Pregnancy Study Group of India. We only use one-step approach. One-step approach has been proposed by the DIPSI and endorsed by the Government of India. In 2007, Government of India issued the instruction that universal screening, that is every pregnant patient will be screened for the glucose intolerance during pregnancy The orders recommends that all women should be screened between 24 to 28 weeks of gestation with 2 hours 25 gram oral glucose. But what we normally follow in our OPD is we first do blood sugar testing in the first trimester also. Fasting or random blood sugar we do in first trimester. Then we repeat the test at around 24 to 26 weeks. That is with OGTT, 75 gram glucose. What is the difference between WHO and Indian criteria? Okay, DIPSI criteria. In WHO, this fasting is mandatory. But India, as you know, patient comes from far off places. They are coming from, say, some far off village. They have come for visiting the doctor. They have already taken the meal in the morning. Okay, and she has first presented to you at around, say, 20 weeks. Okay, so how you will do? WHO criteria you can't do. Patient is not fasting. Will you ask her to come back again fasting state? She will not. Even if she says this, she will not come. Most probably she will not come. So, the criteria or to diagnose the patient at the first visit, we normally do 75 glucose oral glucose tolerance test, that is without fasting. Irrespective of the fasting status, we ask the patient to take 75 gram glucose dissolved in 300 ml of water, and we will do a blood sugar after 2 hours of the intake of glucose. Okay. So, there is ACE, we can easily diagnose the diabetes in pregnancy. Even if patient is non-compliant, patient already presented to you, you can do the test. Okay. So, what is the method? 75 gram glucose is given orally after dissolving in 300 ml of water, whether the pregnant woman comes in fasting or non-fasting state irrespective of the last meal. The intake of the solution has to be completed within 5 to 10 minutes. If vomiting occurs within 30 minutes of oral glucose intake, the test has to be repeated the next day or referred to the facility. If vomiting occurs after 30 minutes, the glucose is already being absorbed. So, we will measure the threshold blood sugar level of more than 140 milligram per deciliter is taken as the cutoff for diagnosis of GDM in Indian population. Okay. Suppose the blood sugar is more than 120, that is more than 120 to less than 140, that is gestational glucose intolerance. She is not diabetic, gestational diabetes, but there is obviously glucose intolerance. We will ask the patient to take diabetic diet and do some exercise. If it is less than 120, that is you are sure she is normal, there is no diabetes. If it is more than 140, that is there is gestational diabetes. And if it is more than 200, suppose a patient first comes to you at around 20 weeks. If the blood sugar is more than 200, that means she is already over diabetes or not gestational diabetes. What are the advantage of DIPSI criteria, Indian criteria? Simple, feasible, convenient, economical, acceptable in Indian scenario. In the first test, if the first test is negative, suppose the patient presents to you around 12 weeks, you did the blood sugar test, it was negative. Second test should be done at around 24 to 28 weeks because there is high chance of development of gestational diabetes after 20 or to 24 weeks. That's why we have to repeat this test around this gestation. In the postpartum period, OGTT should be repeated at 6 weeks after delivery. There should be at least 4 weeks gap between the two tests. If she presents beyond 28 weeks of pregnancy, only one test is to be done at the first point of contact. This is the Indian criteria, universal screening. Suppose you have done pregnant patient presents to you at the first antenatal visit, you will do 75 gram glucose test. Okay. If it is more than 140, it is positive, you will manage as GDM guideline. If it is negative, you will repeat the test at 24 to 28 weeks. What are the maternal complications of GDM? During pregnancy, there is risk of abortion, preterm labor, preeclampsia, polyhydramnios. There is microangiopathy, retinopathy, nephropathy, neuropathy, large vessel disease, coronary artery disease, thromboembolic disease, infection, hypo and hyperglycemia. The vascular complication mainly occurs in the patient with overt diabetes because there is continuous damage occurring over the years when she was already diabetic, where there was already hyperglycemia. But as compared to the gestational diabetes, because the diabetes or the blood sugar hyperglycemia started after 20 weeks, their damage is very less as compared to the over diabetes patient. So the half of the complication mainly occurs in the over diabetes patient. These vascular complications, especially microvascular complication and large vessel complication, they mainly occur in the over diabetes patient. But all other like abortion, preterm labor, preeclampsia, polyhydramnios, all occurs are approx same in the gestational diabetes or over diabetes. During labor, there is prolonged labor, there is shoulder dystocia, perineal injury, PPH, operative interference, increased risk of cesarean delivery. In purpurium, what happens? Purpureal sepsis due to hyperglycemia, lactational failure can be there. What are the fetal complications? In the first trimester, congenital anomalies, cardiac congenital anomalies like ESD, VSD. VSD is more common. Neural tube defect is very common. Sacchalogenesis or caudal regression syndrome. This is the specific congenital anomaly that occurs in diabetes mellitus. Okay. These comes in your MCQs. These are the very important for your NEET PG. Renal agenesis, duodenal atresia, tracheoesophageal fistula. In the second trimester, macrosomia occurs. During delivery, there is birth asphyxia, shoulder dystocia. After delivery, respiratory distress syndrome, hypoglycemia, polycythemia, neonatal jaundice can happen. So why does it occurs? In hyperglycemia in the first trimester, that is in the over diabetes patient, there is impaired organogenesis and there is risk of congenital abnormalities. Chronic maternal hyperglycemia can result in fetal hyperglycemia due to increased blood sugar level in the fetus. There is fetal hyperinsulinemia, increased insulin secretion inside the fetal body. There is increased fetal oxygen demand, decreased oxygen tension or hypoxemia in the fetus. So there is increased anaerobic metabolism, increased lactate and acidemia, and that can result in abortion or intrauterine death of the fetus because of the increased lactate and acidemia. Due to maternal hyperglycemia, there is fetal hyperglycemia. The fetal osmotic diuresis can be there, that can result in polyhydramnios. Due to fetal osmotic diuresis, there is increased secretion of the urine and polyhydramnios occurs mainly in gestational diabetes. Due to fetal hyperinsulinemia, fetal hypoglycemia occurs, increased insulin growth factor, and that this increased IGF can cause fetal macrosomia. Due to fetal macrosomia, there is increased risk of obstructed labor, shoulder dystocia, and during delivery that can cause damage or nerve damage, that is Erb's palsy or birth asphyxia can be there. Due to fetal hyperglycemia, there is decreased cortisol production inside the fetus and there is decreased surfactant synthesis in the lung that can cause respiratory distress syndrome. Neutral effects, already told you, neutral hypoglycemia, respiratory distress syndrome, hypocalcemia, hypermagnesemia, neutral hyperbilirubinemia. Why neutral hypoglycemia occurs? Because in case when the delivery occurs, there was hyperglycemia, the blood sugar or glucose transported to the fetal body through the placenta. Now, when it was inside the body of the mother, there was glucose there, there was increased insulin. But after a delivery, what happens? Insulin is increased in the fetal body, but the glucose that was being transported through the placenta is not there now. When the fetal delivery already, baby is delivered, there is no transport of the glucose from the mother to fetus, obviously baby is delivered. Inside the fetal body, there is increased insulin, but no glucose is there. So, sudden hypoglycemia occurs just after birth. That's why it is important to check blood sugar of the baby, of the diabetic mother frequently. Long-term sequelae, babies born to diabetic mother have increased risk of developing obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, impaired cognitive and motor dysfunction. How we will manage the GDM? So, first and foremost important thing is medical nutrition therapy. What is medical nutrition therapy? We will ask the patient to follow the diabetic diet, okay, and physical exercise for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, we will again measure the blood sugar level. If it has come down to normal, then she can continue MNT and exercise. But if it is not controlled, we will shift on to insulin or OHAs. The woman should walk, exercise for 30 minutes a day after 2 weeks on MMT and physical exercise. 2 hours PP blood sugar post meal should be done. As per ICMR guidelines, for an average weight gain of 10 to 12 kg, additional of 350 kilocalorie per day above the adult requirement is recommended during second third trimester. Severe caloric restriction is not recommended in diabetic patient because it can cause ketonemia and ketonuria and impaired physical mental development in the offspring. Equation proposed by ICMR expert can be used to calculate adult energy requirement, which are as follows. Here, medical nutrition therapy, total caloric intake should be 30 kilocalorie per kg for average weight women, 25 kilocalorie per kg for overweight women, 12 kilocalorie per kg for morbidly obese women. If fasting blood sugar is more than 120, then we have to use insulin, mainly insulin. Insulin, the recommended management in the diabetes in pregnancy, not OHA. Insulin is preferred over OHA. If fasting blood sugar is less than 120, we can continue the MNT, or that is medical nutrition therapy. That is, diet and exercise can be continued if the fasting blood sugar is less than 120. But if fasting sugar is more than 120, we have to shift to insulin, mainly insulin. Nowadays, we recommend mainly insulin. OHA, I will tell you later on which OHA we can use. MNT, these are the medical nutrition therapy, how much percentage, mainly around 40% carbohydrate, complex carbohydrate, 10 to 15% in breakfast, 20-30% in lunch, and 30 to 40% dinner. Snacks, 0 to 10% carbohydrate, 30 to 40% fat, and around 20% protein should be there, okay, in the diet. 3 meals and 1 to 3 snacks can be used. Or ingestion of carbohydrate with low glycemic index should be done. Rest calories from fat and protein. Mainly protein should be around more than 20% of the diet. Unrefined hyperfiber food should be used. Exercise, resistance exercises decrease requirement for insulin. Sitting exercises are discouraged during pregnancies and sitting exercises are encouraged during pregnancy. Glucose monitoring, how she will monitor the glucose? Self glucose monitoring is encouraged. SGM, we call it as SGM. Fasting and 1 to 2 hours post-pregnancy blood sugar is to be measured. So what is the goal? Fasting should be less than 95. After the MNT or after your insulin, the fasting should be less than 95. 1 hour post-pregnancy should be less than 140 and 2 hour post-pregnancy should be less than 120. This is our goal. Laboratory monitoring, when you should do, you already doing self glucose monitoring, so when you should do laboratory monitoring. Once target blood sugar is achieved, we will do till 28 weeks, we will do fasting blood sugar, PP blood sugar once a month. Or if you see any blood sugar level is increasing in trend, then we can obviously repeat the test. Otherwise, if it is controlled, we will just repeat every month. 28 to 32 weeks, once every 2 weeks, and after 32 weeks, weekly blood sugar monitoring should be done. That is laboratory, that you will send the blood to the lab. Or rest blood sugar monitoring will be done with self glucose monitoring. That is, what is this instrument used? What is this? Glucometer. That is, that can be easily used by the patient at home. Insulin. And what is the indication for use of insulin? GDM with fasting blood sugar more than 120, already I told you. GDM with majority of fasting blood sugar more than 90 and majority of PP blood sugar more than 120 despite diet and exercise. If it is more than 90, more than 120 despite MNT, then you have to shift to insulin. This is the OHA, oral hypoglycemic drugs. Mainly metformin, study has been done on metformin, and glibenclamide can also be used, but normally we can use metformin, but that is not encouraged. We normally use insulin. Insulin is the safest drug during pregnancy for diabetes or control of raised blood sugar. There was a study done on metformin. So, in this study, metformin versus insulin for the treatment of gestational diabetes, there were no major differences found in the result, and there was no serious adverse events associated with use of metformin. That's why nowadays we can use, but normally we prefer insulin. If you are working in periphery, there is you can't use insulin, then you can obviously advise metformin. Metformin the safest OHA, and apart from metformin, you can use glibenclamide. But we will, if you can, you will prefer insulin only. Counsel about the metformin risk, including placental crossover and no long-term studies in offspring available. This only one study, this study is available, MIG trial, we call it as MIG trial. So on basis of that, we normally can now use metformin in pregnancy. Starting dose, what is the starting dose? 500 milligram nightly for 1 week, increase to 500 milligram twice daily. And we have to check baseline creatinine when you are using metformin. Adverse events include abdominal pain, diarrhea recommended with meal. So, we ask the patient to take metformin along with the meal, not before meal. Maximum dose can be 2500 to 3000 milligram per day in 2 or 3 divided doses. Consider glibenclamide for women with gestational diabetes and whom blood sugar targets are not achieved with metformin but who decline insulin therapy or who cannot tolerate metformin. So, how you will monitor the pregnancy in a GDM patient or diabetes patient? In the first trimester, what extra things you need to do? That's the main thing. Apart from normal pregnancy, you know what monitoring you will do. Especially in diabetes and pregnancy or gestational diabetes, what thing you will do? In the first trimester, obviously, dating scan should be done, clinical examination should be done. NT scan is very important, biochemical screening and blood screening is very important. Uterine artery prediction for preeclampsia because these patients have high risk of developing preeclampsia. So, we will do prediction of preeclampsia by doing uterine artery Doppler and umbilical artery Doppler or MCA Doppler for the detection and monitoring of intrauterine growth restriction. In the second trimester, clinical examination, obviously anomaly scan at 20 weeks or quadruple marker test nowadays done. If dual marker test has not been done earlier, okay, then you can do the quadruple marker test. AFI and very important fetal echocardiography at 22-24 weeks. Normally we do fetal echocardiography at 24 weeks. Why we do? Why we are doing fetal echocardiography or recommending in diabetes and pregnancy? Congenital anomaly. Which congenital anomaly you want to see? VSD, ESD, because there is increased risk of cardiac congenital anomaly in the fetus in diabetic mother. Okay. Third trimester, normal clinical examination is done, growth scan at 28 weeks, 32 weeks, 36 weeks. Because there is risk of IUGR, intrauterine growth restriction, we will do the growth scan at 28, 32, 36 weeks. Color Doppler as indicated, this is the color Doppler of the uterine artery, umbilical artery and MC artery. AFI, NST can be done at 32 weeks onwards if on insulin. In pregnant women with GDM between 24 to 34 weeks of gestation and requiring early delivery, antenatal steroid should be given as per Government of India guideline, that is dexamethasone 6 mg IM 12 hourly for 2 days, that is total 4 doses are given. Injection dexamethasone 6 mg. More vigilant monitoring of blood sugar should be done during this period. When you have given dexamethasone, there can be rise in blood sugar. That's why you will do vigilant monitoring of the blood sugar level. In case of red blood sugar during this period, adjustment of the insulin dose should be made accordingly. So, what should be the mode of delivery in a diabetic mother? Vaginal route is obviously preferred unless until there is any obstetric indication. Mainly this is the thing. We don't do specifically if patient is diabetic, we will do C-section. No. Unless until there is no obstetric indication, we will not do C-section. Vaginal route is preferred. C-section is done if there is past ops history or there is any increased chance of abortion, there is past history of stillbirth, there is past history of IUFD, there is past history of big baby, there is past history of shoulder dystocia, then we can do C-section in that cases. Other obstetric complication, fetal weight more than 4.5 kg or more, but in India we follow fetal weight more than 4 kg. Okay, if fetal weight is more than 4 kg, we will prefer C-section. And if patient wants. When to induce? If you want to induce the patient, when you will induce. In low risk GDM, allowed to develop spontaneous labor at term, and at 40 weeks you can induce labor. High risk GDM patients you can induce at 38 weeks. So, which insulin to use? You must have read insulin, types of insulin in medicine, okay, but this overview, there are rapid acting insulin, short acting, intermediate acting, long acting insulin. So, normally we use rapid acting insulin Lispo-Aspart or mainly short acting insulin, regular insulin we use, Humulin, called as Humulin. Intermediate acting NPH we use. mainly regular and NPH we normally use in pregnancy patient. Okay. Short acting insulin, there is onset is in 30 minutes to 1 hour, and the action remains for 5 to 8 hours. Okay, and peak action is develops at around 2 to 5 hours. Intermediate acting insulin, the onset is at around 1 to 2 hours, and it action remains for 18 to 24 hours. Okay, and the peak develops at around 6 to 12 hours. So normally, in many patients, we can use the combination of the regular and intermediate, that is short acting and intermediate acting insulin. That is 30-70, you must have heard, 30-70 mixed that you can use in pregnancy patient. So normally total insulin dose is calculated, and 2/3 is given in the morning and 1/3 is given at the night. So mainly 70% is used the NPH and 30% is used the regular, that is 30-70, and the 2/3 of the dose is given in the morning and 1/3 at the night. NICE guidelines suggest daily testing of urine sugar and ketone by dipstick method if you are giving insulin. Site of insulin injection, front or lateral aspect of thigh or over abdomen. Insulin injection is to be given subcutaneous only. Only subcutaneous injection is given insulin. These things I think you already know in medicine lectures. Single use insulin syringes given, pen needle should be used. Care in labor and delivery. Labor management in the first stage, what will you do? You will, if the patient is control on diet and patient has developed spontaneous labor, so what you will do admission CTG and partograph is maintained. Blood sugar by glucometer 2 hourly we will check. Okay. Target is 80 to 120 mg/%. Continuous fetal monitoring is being done. Suppose the patient is on insulin or oral OHA and patient develops spontaneous labor. So what you will do admission CTG or partograph, blood sugar should be monitored, same 2 hourly. Target is same 80 to 120, continuous fetal monitoring is done, and what else you will do in this case, especially IV fluid as per the blood sugar level you will give. It is encouraged presence of expert obstetrician is to be there, and close electronic monitoring, that is CTG, is to be done. In the second and third stage, what you will do in second stage, control ARM should be done because there is chances of polyhydramnios and cord prolapse. Control ARM should be done, not normal ARM, control ARM should be done. Anticipate shoulder dystocia, assisted vaginal delivery should be encouraged, and neonatologist or trained person to assist the baby should be present, okay, during the delivery of a diabetic mother. Third stage, active management of third stage should be done. Traumatic atonic PPH should be managed. Close monitoring of the second stage. Watch for fetal distress, vaginal delivery should be preferred, and LS should be done only for obstetric indication only. Insulin management during labor and delivery. What we normally ask the patient, you can use a normal dose of intermediate insulin at the bedtime before the date of delivery. Okay. Morning dose of insulin is withheld. Okay. The morning dose she will not take the morning dose. IV infusion of NS or normal saline is begun. Once active level begins or glucose level falls below 70 mg/dL, infusion is changed from saline to 5% dextrose and delivered at the rate of 2.5 mg/kg per minute. Glucose levels are checked hourly using a portable meter, that is glucometer, allowing for adjustment in infusion rate. Regular short acting insulin is spread by IV infusion if glucose level exceeds 140 mg/dL. That is, we use the sliding scale. When you have already started the infusion, you are checking the blood sugar every 1 hourly. So you will follow the sliding scale for insulin. Or which insulin you will give? Now you will give short acting insulin. Or intermediate acting insulin, here already taken the night before. This is the sliding scale. Different setting scale are used in different patients, but normally we use this one. If it is more than 120, then you will give 4 unit. If it is more than 140 to 180, you will give 6 unit. If it is more than 180, you will give 8 unit. Postpartum management, insulin requirement decreases drastically after delivery. Do not need insulin for 24 to 48 hours postpartum, and we can encourage the breastfeeding. Neonatal care, early cord clamping, Apgar score at 1 minute, 5 minutes, screening for congenital anomalies should be done by the neonatologist. Early feeding should be started because there is a risk of hypoglycemia just after birth. So, early feeding should be encouraged. Capillary blood glucose should be monitored at 1 to 2 hours of age and before the first 4 breastfeeding. Blood tests for polycythemia, hyperbilirubinemia, hypocalcemia, hypermagnesemia should be carried out by, for the baby with clinical signs. 50% of the women, how we will follow up the patient with GDM develops overt diabetes mellitus within 20 years, also at risk of metabolic syndrome. Risk of GDM in future pregnancies are there, so we have to explain the patient the risk of overt diabetes and risk of GDM in future pregnancies. You have to ask the patient to modify the lifestyle. So, how you will monitor postpartum, post-delivery 1 to 3 days, we will do fasting or random blood sugar. Early postpartum, that is 6 weeks postpartum, you will do 75 gram glucose OGTT test. After 1 year postpartum, same annually, we have to repeat this, and next pregnancy, if she is planning for a future pregnancy, we have to repeat this test. How to recognize or manage hypoglycemia? If it is less than 70, that means there is hypoglycemia. So, you have to give glucose powder, 3 tablespoons of glucose powder, 15 to 20 gram, dissolved in a glass of water. If patient asks if there is blood sugar is less than 70, so what we should do? We will ask the patient to take 3 tablespoons of the glucose powder, dissolved in water, a glass of water. If glucose is not available, you will ask patient to take sugar or anything sweet she can take, okay. And to take rest and avoid any physical activity for 15 minutes after taking glucose. Eat 1 chapati with vegetable or rice. If hypoglycemia continues, repeat same amount of glucose and weight. What complication occurs in diabetic mother? Shoulder dystocia and diabetic ketoacidosis. This is the most dangerous one, diabetic ketoacidosis. Shoulder dystocia can occur during normal delivery of the macrosomic baby. Shoulder dystocia is defined as the impaction of anterior fetal shoulder against the maternal pubic bone after delivery of the fetal head. Here, because increase the portion of the fat, the shoulder is stuck behind the pubic bone of the mother. That is shoulder dystocia. Head has already been delivered, but you can't deliver the shoulder. It normally delivers easily, but in diabetic mother or macrosomic baby, you can't deliver the baby. That is known as shoulder dystocia. The incidence is 0.6 to 1.4%. So, what you will do in this patient? Because there is risk of birth asphyxia, brachial plexus injury, Erb's palsy, Klumpke's palsy, fetal clavicle fracture, and increased maternal morbidity also. There is increased risk of laceration in the vulva, vagina, cervix, episiotomy extension, and intrapartum postpartum hemorrhage. So, what you will do? You can do McRoberts maneuver, you can do wood screw method, okay. And there is a particular chain that is called as alarma. You will do that. Whenever you see there is, you are delivering a baby, if you will be doing internship, you have been asked to deliver a baby. You see there is head already delivered, but you can't deliver the shoulder. So, first and foremost thing you will do, ask for help. Ask for help, you will ask the seniors, ask the pediatrician, you will ask for the anesthetist. Then you will lift the legs, that is McRoberts maneuver. You will give the suprapubic pressure for the anterior shoulder delivery. Then you will do Wood's corkscrew maneuver, that is rotate. In the Wood's corkscrew method, I will tell you that you will rotate the fetal shoulder. And removal of the posterior arm and shoulder, that is M. And episiotomy should be extended, and we will, if not deliver, we will repeat the above steps. Okay, this is alarma. So, what you will do in McRoberts maneuver? You will do cephalic rotation of the symphysis pubis, and which reduces the lumbar lordosis. Here you can see you will do the hyperflexion and abduction of the thigh. Flexion and abduction of the thigh, which causes reduction of the lumbar lordosis. Here you can see there was reduced space, now the space has increased, okay, which may facilitate disinfection of the anterior fetal shoulder. And when you are giving suprapubic pressure, you are allowing the anterior shoulder to move under the pubic symphysis. Okay, so this is the suprapubic pressure and this is the Mac-Roberts maneuver. This two combination is known as Mac-Roberts maneuver. You will give the suprapubic pressure and ask the patient to flex the thigh and abduct the thigh. So the lumbar lordosis is decreased and the space is increased. And when you are giving suprapubic pressure, you are dislodging the anterior shoulder. This is Mac-Roberts maneuver. In the Woods corkscrew maneuver, we will rotate the posterior shoulder anteriorly, and when you will rotate the posterior shoulder anteriorly, it will come below the pubic symphysis, and now you can deliver the posterior shoulder. And same is repeated for the anterior shoulder, and the baby is delivered. This is Woods corkscrew. You will rotate the shoulder. Okay. And Gaskin maneuver, that is all four positions can also help in disimpacting the shoulder. Now coming on to diabetic ketoacidosis, the diagnosis of diabetic ketoacidosis is made when blood sugar is more than 250. You must have studied this in medicine, diabetic ketoacidosis. This is a dangerous complication if the patient is already over diabetes. Mainly occurs in patient with over diabetes. If blood sugar is more than 250, ketone bodies in blood and urine and arterial pH is less than 7.3 and serum bicarbonate is less than 15 milliequivalent per liter. So what happens is in diabetic ketoacidosis, without insulin from the pancreas, glucose from food is unable to process by the body. Okay, the glucose is there. This blue one is glucose and this yellow one is the ketone bodies. The liver produces more glucose to feed the body, but without insulin, the glucose accumulates in the bloodstream. Now, without glucose for energy, the body breaks down fat because without insulin, the body is not able to utilize the glucose. But body needs glucose, the body will break down the fat, and so ketone bodies are released in the body. Ketone bodies, toxic acids are the byproducts of fat metabolism build up in the bloodstream, that is ketoacidosis. This can be fatal, causing heart rhythm abnormalities. And in kidney, ketone and glucose are transferred into the urine. The kidneys utilize water to empty the bloodstream of excess glucose and ketones. The water is also voided along with the excess glucose and ketones. The loss of water leads to dehydration, which worsens the ketoacidosis in vicious cycle and causes low blood pressure and shock. So, what treatment you will do? First, periodic monitoring of the pulse, blood pressure, input, output, capillary blood glucose, urine ketones, blood gases and electrolytes. You should do EABG. Fetal heart monitoring is done. Fetal fluid replacement, deficit of 6 to 7 liters replaced in 12 to 24 hours. In first hour, 1 liter normal saline followed by 300 to 500 milliliter per hour till pulse and blood pressure are normal. Hypokalemia should be managed. Insulin is started. If blood sugar does not fall by 30% in the first 3 hours, dip rate is doubled. When glucose is between 200 to 250, normal saline is changed to 5% dextrose. Bicarbonate is given if pH is less than 6.8 and IV antibiotics can be given. Treatment of cause is very important. Now coming on to contraceptive advice. What contraceptive advice when patient is delivered, patient is, you are going to discharge the patient. What contraceptive advice you will give? Barrier method is the ideal. Progesterone only pills are also safe. OCPs, combined OCPs should be avoided. IUCD better avoided, but you can give, but it should be avoided because it can predispose to infection in a diabetic patient. Can undergo tubal ligation. Vasectomy for husband is a good option. The barrier contraceptive, tubal ligation and vasectomy good option. If everything is fine, blood sugar level is fine, then you can give, but you should normally avoid using IUCDs. So, what we need to know in diabetes and pregnancy? There should be awareness. Patient should know and doctor should know before, during and after pregnancy. Preconceptional care. If already patient is known over diabetes, she knows that she is diabetic, you know that patient is already known case of diabetes, then you should give preconceptional care. Glycemic control should be there in the preconception period and in the organogenesis first trimester period. Obstetric management during labor, continuous monitoring during labor and delivery plan should be discussed with the patient. And multidisciplinary team means ki during delivery you will need a endocrinologist or general physician for the management of the sugar. You will need pediatrician during the delivery of the baby, neonatologist to monitor the baby, and obviously obstetrician, trained obstetrician, senior obstetrician. That is multidisciplinary team. In the Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan, they give the facility to check the blood sugar level, that is OETT is done in the centers, PHCs also. Okay. There many trained officers are present, maybe obstetric and gynecologists are present, and the blood sugar level, that is OGTT, 75 gram glucose OGTT is being done in the PSC centers, many PSC centers. If during this Pradhan Mantri Yojana, this is a Yojana that is being followed in different hospitals, like 9th of every month this is followed, and all the pregnant patients are being checked and investigated. So in that visit, you can check the blood sugar level, and if you gets to find out that patient is diabetic, you will give the red sticker. You might have to do that in the internship posting. The Pradhan Mantri Yojana is being followed in almost all the medical colleges and PSCs. So you will give red sticker to the high risk patients, especially diabetic mother or hypertensive mother, that is hypertensive disorder of pregnancy is there. Patient is known case of previous post-CS patient, post-in delivery patient, and obviously diabetic patient. You will give the red sticker, and you will refer the patient to the specialist if the patient is identified as high risk. So Indian guideline, what is being followed? Which test is being done? 5 minutes remaining, we can revise. Indian guideline, we will follow DIPSI guideline. Okay. So how much glucose is being given? 75 gram glucose. How you should advise the patient to take it? Dissolved. Then you will check the blood sugar after 2 hours. What should be the level? Less than 140, that means it's okay. If it is more than 140, that means she is diabetic. If the patient is just being asked to do random blood sugar, if it is more than 200, that means she is over diabetic, and fasting blood sugar more than 126 is over diabetic. So how you will manage a patient with diabetes in pregnancy? This side. How you will manage a patient with diabetes in pregnancy? Suppose the patient comes to you with a report of 75 gram OETT more than 140 milligram. Okay. What you will advise the patient first? Suppose the blood sugar level is 156. Okay, 75 gram glucose she has taken. After 2 hours, the blood sugar level is 156. What you will advise? 3 options A, B, C. MNT, insulin, or OHA. What you will advise? MNT, yes. First and preferred is MNT. You will ask the patient to follow the medical nutrition advice for 2 weeks. Then you will repeat the blood sugar, that is 2 hour postprandial blood sugar after 2 weeks. If that is less than 140, that is my control, or you can continue the MNT. If it is more, then you will have to shift to insulin. Mainly insulin is required in the patient where fasting blood sugar is more than 120 and that is not controlled on MNT. Then you will give the patient insulin. Okay, insulin dosing I already told you, but nowadays normally if you are pushed in periphery, you don't have access to insulin, because insulin should be kept in the fridge. There is a specific temperature requirement. If you can't do that, you can advise the patient to OHA, because bad glycemic control is worse than glycemic control on OHA. So if you don't have access to insulin, or patient is not ready to take insulin, you will advise OHAs, metformin. Okay.